I was 29 when my life finally came full circle, when I bought the very company my family had built over generations. But let me rewind to the part they never imagined I'd survive. I still remember sitting on a stained mattress in the corner of my parents' basement, blueprint sketches covering the wall like graffiti. My laptop wheezed like it had asthma, and the Wi-Fi only worked if I sat by the laundry machine. That's where I ran Carter Concepts, my so-called pipe dream, according to my dad. "You'll never be a real entrepreneur with your head in the clouds," he'd say, sipping his scotch like it was wisdom. My older brother Dylan? He'd just laugh. "V, you're doodling logos while we're running a real business. Wake up." That real business was Carter & Sons Textiles, started by my great-grandfather and run like an old boys' club. They never saw me as a rightful heir. I was too emotional, too idealistic, and worst of all, a girl with a vision. What they didn't know was that my little basement business was more than just sketches. It was tech-driven, ethically sourced, and digitally scalable. And even though I had no investors, I had grit, the kind that grows in silence, in cold basements, and under heavy ceilings of doubt. One night, while watching a supplier's Zoom call buffer for the 10th time, I overheard my mother on the phone upstairs. Her voice was sharp, familiar. "No, Vanessa's still pretending she's the next Steve Jobs. I'm just hoping she'll grow out of it and settle down. Maybe find someone with an actual paycheck." I didn't cry. I emailed 3 more vendors instead. I was building something no one could see, yet. But they would. Oh, they would. Cliffhanger. That winter, Carter & Sons quietly filed for restructuring. And I saw an opportunity in the fine print. When Carter & Sons announced internal restructuring, my father didn't even mention it over dinner. But I could tell something was off. His tie was loosened, and his phone stayed face down the entire meal. A bad sign for a man who clutched power like a rosary. The truth. Their flagship mill in Atlanta was hemorrhaging money, and they'd taken a private bridge loan at a steep interest rate. I found out by sheer accident, through a supplier who, ironically, had just agreed to partner with my doodled logo company. "You know Carter & Sons," he said casually on the call. "They missed a payment on a standing order. You might want to slide in." That night, I did more than slide in. I dissected their financials, registered a new holding company, and called an old college friend who now worked in distressed asset brokering. "You're crazy," she said. "Crazy enough to pay cash." Within weeks, my shell company quietly acquired the Atlanta mill, the heart of Carter & Sons' manufacturing line. When the papers were signed, I didn't celebrate. I sat in silence, my fingers trembling over the touchpad, staring at my new email address. Vanessa.carter@bluerivergroup.com. Owner. Theo. But I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not even when my father's angry whispers on the phone started echoing through the hallway. "They're taking us apart piece by piece, damn it. Who the hell is Blue River?" He didn't know. Not yet. But he would. Cliffhanger. At the next family dinner, Dylan raised his glass and made a joke that would age like sour milk. To Carter & Sons, too big to fail. The tension at that dinner table was thick. Dad had 2 bourbons before the roast was served, and my mother wouldn't stop asking if I'd applied to any real jobs lately. I wanted to laugh. If only they knew their legacy now had my name on it. Instead, I smiled and played the part. The disappointment, the dreamer, the one they all thought would end up teaching yoga in Costa Rica or something. "Still working on that startup?" Dylan asked, chewing like a bulldog. "Still ignoring the warning signs?" I shot back. His jaw clenched. "We're fine. We've weathered worse." But they hadn't, not like this. That same week, I finalized a deal that would pull their top 10 contracts under my umbrella. My startup, now powered by my newly acquired mill, could produce cheaper, faster, and ethically, which corporate buyers loved. Suddenly, Carter & Sons was bleeding clients. And they had no idea why. Then came the meeting that changed everything. Dad called me into his office, not out of respect, but obligation. "Vanessa, do you know anyone over at Blue River Group?" he asked, sipping bitterness. I looked him straight in the eyes. "Why do you ask?" "They're poaching all our business." I nodded slowly. "Maybe you should have taken me seriously when I offered to collaborate 2 years ago." He blinked. You offered to. I stood up, brushing imaginary lint off my jeans. I did. And you said I was a liability. He stared, speechless. And then I walked out. Cliffhanger. The next day, Carter & Sons put their remaining assets up for silent bid. And I submitted mine, in full cash. The bidding war was laughable. My father's pride forced him to hold out for the highest offer, but what he didn't know was that every other bidder was either connected to me, or backed out after I quietly acquired their firms first. In short, I left them no way out. On Friday, I got the call. Ms. Carter, Blue River's bid has been accepted. You now own Carter & Sons corporate headquarters and its remaining IP. I whispered a thank you, not out of politeness, but power. The building I wasn't allowed to intern in during college was now mine. The same desk my father once slammed shut when I walked in wearing jeans now bore my initials on the corner plate. I didn't tell them right away. No, I let the silence thicken first. That weekend, they all gathered at my parents' house for a family cookout. I showed up late, in a navy blazer and jeans, poetic symmetry. Mom blinked when she saw me. Didn't think you'd show. You're always so busy. I am, I said, smiling. Dylan grilled burgers with his phone glued to his hand. He was worried. He'd recently been demoted. The new owners had restructured. And still, no one had figured it out. Then the news broke. A Business Journal article popped up on Dylan's phone mid-bite. He paled. He turned the screen toward my father, and my father's jaw tightened as he read. Carter & Sons acquired in historic buyout by local tech founder, Vanessa Carter to lead restructuring. The backyard went silent. Cliffhanger. My mother's voice cracked first. Vanessa, what have you done? You could hear a pin drop on the grass. My father held the phone like it had burned him. Dylan stood frozen, burger forgotten in his hand. And my mother, she looked at me like I'd just confessed to arson. I took a sip from my lemonade and said, calmly, I didn't do anything to you. I did something for myself. You bought the company, my father barked. I nodded. Technically, I bought the assets after your board defaulted. But yes, it's mine now. You used us. Our name. Our vendors. Our network. You mocked me. You rejected my ideas, belittled my ambition, and refused to see me as anything more than a hobbyist with a laptop. You left me no seat at your table. So I built a better one. I thought my mother might cry. But she just whispered, Why didn't you tell us? I turned to her, voice soft but steady. Because every time I told you about my dreams, you laughed. No one spoke. The backyard party slowly disbanded. Aunts and uncles slipped away, pretending to check their watches. I stood alone in the place I once called home, no applause, no hugs, just the sound of collapsing pride. Later that night, Dylan texted me. Did you really have to take everything? I stared at the screen for a moment before replying. I offered you a partnership 2 years ago. You said I wasn't cut out for this world. Now I own it. Cliffhanger. The next morning, Dylan walked into his office, only to find a pink slip waiting on his desk. I didn't fire him out of spite. I fired him because he was bad at his job. Carter & Sons had bled millions under his watch, clinging to outdated contracts and wasteful practices. Now under Blue River, I was rebuilding from the ground up. New leadership, new ethics, and most importantly, new blood. I kept only 6 employees from the original team. Everyone else let go with fair severance, a letter of thanks, and a reminder, this wasn't personal. It was business, the kind they never thought I was capable of. The press went wild. Forbes called me the millennial disruptor of legacy manufacturing. TechWire dubbed it the quietest takeover with the loudest message. But the best part? Job applications flooded in, including one from my father. He applied for a consultancy position. I stared at the PDF resume for a long time. The same man who once told me to get a real job was now asking if I had one for him. I didn't reject it. I scheduled an interview and made him wait in the lobby for 23 minutes. When I finally called him in, I said one thing before he could sit. This is the last time you walk into a boardroom uninvited. Cliffhanger. My father swallowed hard. Are you seriously going to make me work for you? I hired him, but on my terms. 2 days a week. Junior consultant. No desk nameplate, no special parking, no executive privileges. He never complained, but I could see the pride crack a little more each morning. That year, I tripled the company's revenue. We went carbon neutral. Landed a national contract with a high-end retail chain. I launched an internship program for underprivileged girls interested in business and design. The same dream I was once mocked for was now mentoring hundreds. One evening, I walked through the same factory floor that used to smell like sweat and machine grease. Now it smelled like fresh pine and innovation. Dylan sent another message. This time, a voice note. You really did it, V. You didn't just prove us wrong. You rebuilt everything better. I'm sorry. For laughing. For not believing. For all of it. I didn't reply. Some wounds don't need stitches, they need distance. At the annual shareholder meeting, I walked on stage in a fitted blue blazer, greeted by a standing ovation. My name was etched in gold on the screen behind me. Vanessa Carter, CEO, Blue River Group. Not the daughter of. Not the sister of. Just me. Cliffhanger. After the applause faded, I spotted my father in the crowd, clapping slower than everyone else, but clapping nonetheless. A year later, I sold the company for 8 figures to a green tech conglomerate, with one condition. The Carter name would be preserved on all ethical product lines. Not because I wanted to honor the past, but because I wanted the world to know who mocked me, and who I became despite it. The basement where I started? I bought that house too. Turned it into a scholarship-funded startup accelerator for girls from disadvantaged backgrounds. They don't know my full story, but they work beneath a sign that reads, "Start where you are. Build what they said you couldn't." I never needed their validation. I needed a chance, and I gave that to myself.